Be me. 32F. Literally the worst kind of woman for most of you guys. Was, anyway. Blue hair, nose ring, the whole 9 yards. Not fat, though. Got that going for me. But probably what you'd call skinny fat. Degree in gender studies from a liberal arts college that cost more than a house. Lived in a gentrified part of a major city. My entire personality was built on Twitter hashtags and brunch mimosas. Hashtag all men was ironic, I swear. Mostly, my feed was a curated echo chamber of outrage. Mansplaining, manspreading, the patriarchy, toxic masculinity. I knew all the jargon. I was a high priestess in the cult of perpetual victimhood. My friends and I were the woke Avengers, assembling to vanquish the evil of male privilege one sarcastic tweet at a time. My dad was the final boss in this scenario, or so I told myself. Boomer, suburban, voted for the wrong guy. Worked as a civil engineer his whole life. Built bridges, roads, infrastructure. You know, the stuff that keeps society from collapsing. But in my eyes, he was just a walking personification of the patriarchy. He was quiet, emotionally distant, didn't know how to talk about feelings. His solution to any problem was to try and fix it. My car broke down? He'd drive 3 hours with his tools to fix it himself. My heart broke? He'd offer to help me build a new bookshelf. I saw it as him being unable to connect. Called him emotionally stunted to my therapist. My therapist, a woman who looked like a startled owl and charged $200 an hour to nod, agreed with me. Of course she did. My relationship with him was strained for years. Every phone call was a minefield. I'd bring up some social justice issue, baiting him. He'd give some common-sense, apolitical answer. I'd twist it into proof of his inherent bigotry. It was a sick game, and I was the only one playing. He just wanted to know if I was eating right. I wanted to deconstruct his entire worldview. We talked past each other. 2 ships in the night, one of which was on fire, and actively trying to torpedo the other. Last year, he got the diagnosis. Pancreatic. The bad one. The one that's basically a death sentence with a tight deadline. Got the call from my mom. They'd been divorced for 15 years but were still civil. More on that later. She was crying. I felt nothing at first. Just a cold, hollow inconvenience. Shit, now I have to go back to that dead-end town. I know, I'm a piece of work. Just wait. Flew home a week later. Walked into the house I grew up in, the one he had to move out of. He was staying there since my mom had a spare room. He was on the couch, watching some old western. He looked smaller. The man who used to lift me up with one arm, who taught me how to ride a bike, who carried all the groceries in one trip. He looked like a balloon that someone had let half the air out of. His clothes hung off him, but he smiled when he saw me. That same old, quiet, gentle smile. Hey, kiddo. I just stood there, my brain short-circuiting. The patriarch was dying. The oppressor was weak. It didn't compute. The next few months were a blur of chemo and hospital visits. I took a leave of absence from my pointless marketing job. Moved back into my childhood bedroom. I saw the reality of a man facing his own mortality, and it shattered every single one of my preconceived notions. He never complained. Not once. Doctors would stick him with needles, pump him full of poison that made his hair fall out and his body ache. He'd just thank the nurses afterward. He'd get home, throw up for an hour, and then ask if the lawn needed mowing. It was infuriating. Dad, you have to rest. You have to talk about how you're feeling. He'd just look at me, confused. What's there to talk about? It is what it is. The lawn's getting a little high, that's all. His stoicism wasn't a flaw. It was a shield, the only one he had left. One day, I was driving him home from a treatment. He was asleep in the passenger seat, snoring softly. He looked so old, so tired. I saw his hands resting on his lap, calloused, scarred, knuckles swollen with arthritis. The hands that built bridges, the hands that fixed my toys, the hands that held me when I was a baby, the hands that worked for 40 years without a single complaint so that I could have a life he never dreamed of, so I could go to an expensive college and learn to hate him for it. I had to pull over. I just started sobbing, ugly, gasping sobs. He woke up, startled. What's wrong? Did the car break down? I think I have my tools in the back. Even on his deathbed, his first instinct was to fix something for me. I couldn't speak. I just shook my head and kept crying. He just sat there, patting my shoulder awkwardly. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. He was comforting me. He, the dying man, was comforting the healthy daughter who had treated him like an enemy for a decade. He died 2 months later. It was peaceful, in his sleep. The funeral was small. Some family, a few of his old buddies from work, big, burly men who looked like they could wrestle bears. Every one of them crying their eyes out. They all told me the same thing. Your dad was the best man I ever knew. He'd give you the shirt off his back. He never said a bad word about anyone. Always the first to show up, last to leave. Solid as a rock. I felt like I was at the funeral of a stranger. The real education began after he was gone. My mom asked me to help her clean out his apartment, a small, depressing 2-bedroom place he'd been renting since the divorce, the kind of place that always smells faintly of stale coffee and loneliness. We started going through his things, and it was like excavating the ruins of a forgotten civilization, the civilization of a 20th century man. In his desk, we found all his financial records, pay stubs going back to the 80s, tax returns, bank statements. I saw it all. I saw the mortgage payments on our family home, the car payments, the checks he wrote for my braces, my school trips, my college tuition. I saw his salary, steady and respectable but not extravagant, and I saw where it all went. It didn't go to him. His only hobbies, looking at the statements, were Home Depot and the occasional fishing trip. He wore the same 10 shirts for 20 years. He drove the same beat-up truck. He packed a lunch for work every single day. Every spare penny went to me and my mom. Then we found the divorce papers. I sat on the floor of his dusty apartment and read the legal history of my family's dissolution. My mother had told me the story for years. He left us, she'd say. He just decided he didn't want to be a husband anymore. I believed her, of course. It fit my narrative. Men are selfish. Men abandon their responsibilities. The papers told a different story. They told the story of no-fault divorce law. They told the story of a man who got systematically dismantled. My mom got the house, the one he'd spent 20 years paying for and maintaining. She got the new car. She got 50% of his pension. She got alimony. She got child support, even though they had 50-50 custody. He got his tools, his truck, and a court order to pay for a life he was no longer a part of. He wasn't a visitor in our old house. He was a bill payer. He didn't leave. He was evicted from his own life and forced to finance the occupation. I thought about all the times my mom complained about money after the divorce, how she always made him sound like a deadbeat. But I was looking at the carbon copies of the checks. He never missed a payment. Not once. Even when he got laid off for 6 months in the early 2000s. He took a job as a handyman, working 80 hours a week, just to make sure those checks cleared. He sold his beloved fishing boat for pennies on the dollar to keep from falling behind. My mom, meanwhile, was going on cruises with her new boyfriend. The story I had been told was a lie, a convenient lie that painted a woman's choice as a man's failure. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. In his closet, behind a stack of old flannel shirts, was a small box. Inside were mementos, my report cards from elementary school, a macaroni necklace I made him for Father's Day in 1998, a program from my high school graduation with my name circled, and letters, dozens of them, unsent letters, letters to me. He'd write them after our arguments on the phone. He wasn't emotionally distant. He just didn't know how to say the words out loud. He'd write down his feelings, his frustrations, his love for me, page after page of a man trying to understand his daughter, who had suddenly started speaking a language he didn't recognize. I don't know what I said wrong. I just want you to be happy. I know I'm not perfect, but I've always tried my best for you. I'm proud of you, even when you're angry with me. I love you, kiddo. He could never bring himself to send them, afraid of making things worse, afraid of being rejected again. So he just kept them in a box, a silent testament to a love I was too blind and arrogant to see. In the bedside table, a prescription bottle, antidepressants, dated from the year after the divorce. He was never emotionally unavailable. He was depressed, crushed by loneliness, and the weight of a system that treated him as nothing more than a walking ATM. He had no one to talk to. His old friends were couple friends, and they sided with my mom. Men of his generation didn't talk about their feelings with each other. They talked about sports, about work, about fixing a carburetor. To admit you were hurting was to admit you were failing. So, he suffered in silence, alone in his sad little apartment, with just the ghosts of his former life for company. I started to see him not as my father, but as a man who played the game by the rules, only to have the rules changed on him halfway through. A man who dedicated his life to being a good husband and father, the two roles society told him were his purpose. And when those roles were stripped away, what was he left with? A job he didn't love, an empty apartment, and a daughter who thought he was the enemy. His entire identity was based on his utility to others. Provider, protector, fixer. When my mom decided he was no longer useful to her as a husband, she disposed of him. When I decided he was no longer useful to me as an ideological ally, I ghosted him. We called men useless, and then we were shocked when they felt worthless. I went back to my apartment in the city. It felt different, like a movie set. All the props were in place, but the meaning was gone. I looked at my Twitter feed. My friends were posting the same old tired slogans. Men are trash. Another day of male mediocrity. Dear men, please just do better. I used to cheer this stuff on. Now it made me physically ill. I saw my father's face in every anonymous man they were mocking. The guy who gets left on read on Tinder. The guy who loses his kids in court. The guy who works a dangerous job to support his family. The guy who kills himself because he has no one to turn to. These weren't abstract concepts anymore. They were my dad. I started seeing it everywhere. The subtle, casual contempt for men that permeates our culture. In commercials, dads are bumbling idiots who can't figure out how to use a washing machine. In movies, the male hero can only become a better person through the guidance of a wise, patient woman. In the news, every story about a man's failure is presented as proof of a systemic problem with masculinity itself. But a man's success, that's just privilege. Men are told to be vulnerable, but when they are, they're called weak or manipulative. They're told to be gentle, but women still swipe right on the shirtless gym bro with the aggressive bio. They're told to be more than just providers, but their value in the dating market is still inextricably linked to their height and their income. The system is rigged. It's a game you can't win. And for the first time, I felt a profound, soul-crushing empathy for the men who are forced to play it every single day. I tried to talk to my friends about it. Big mistake. I brought up the male suicide rate. That's because of toxic masculinity, my friend Chloe said, without looking up from her phone. I mentioned the disparities in the family court system. Good. It's time women had the advantage for a change, said another. I told them about my dad, about the divorce papers, the unsent letters, the hidden depression. I thought foolishly that a real human story might break through the ideology. I was wrong. They just looked at me with a mixture of pity and suspicion. You're just grieving, my therapist Owl told me. You're idealizing him. It's a common coping mechanism. You're centering a man's feelings in a space that should be about your healing. They couldn't see it. They didn't want to see it. My father's life, his struggles, his quiet dignity, it was all just an inconvenient data point that threatened their simplistic, man-hating worldview. I was one of them just weeks before. I realized I wasn't mourning just my father. I was mourning the years I wasted hating him for crimes he never committed. I was mourning the woman I used to be, a person so blinded by ideology she couldn't see the love and pain of her own father. I deleted my Twitter. I ghosted my woke friends. I broke up with my therapist. I moved out of the city. I'm living in my dad's old apartment now. It's still sad, still smells a little like stale coffee, but it's quiet. I'm reading the books he left behind. History, biographies, manuals on how to fix things. I'm learning to be useful. I fixed the leaky faucet under the sink last week, used his old wrench, sat on the floor, got dirty, scraped my knuckles, and when I was done, and the dripping stopped, I felt a sense of satisfaction I hadn't felt in my entire life. I understood. I finally understood. Sometimes I think about what he would say if he could see me now. The blue hair is gone, faded back to a mousy brown. The nose ring is out. I'm wearing his old flannel shirts. I think he'd be confused, but I think he'd be happy. He wouldn't say I told you so. He'd just smile that quiet smile and ask if I needed help fixing anything. So here I am, on 4chan of all places, the belly of the beast, the place I used to screen cap to show my friends how awful men were. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm not here for forgiveness. I guess I'm just here to say I'm sorry, not just to my dad, but to all of you. I was wrong. We were wrong. We called you useless. We didn't realize that for so many of you, being useful was the only thing holding you together. We broke you, and then we blamed you for being broken. My mom called yesterday. She was complaining about her new boyfriend. "He's just so useless," she said. "He never fixes anything around the house." "Not like your father?" I just stayed silent. The silence of a man who knows there's nothing he can say that will make a difference. The silence of my father. When she was done, I just said one thing. "I know, Mom." I hung up the phone and looked around the quiet apartment. On the wall, I'd hung a picture of my dad. He's younger, smiling, holding me as a little girl on his shoulders. He looks happy, strong, useful. A tear rolled down my cheek. I finally understood that the patriarchy wasn't a system of male power. I realized it was a system of male sacrifice, and we'd just forgotten what we were sacrificing them for. My dad died, and the only thing he left me was a toolbox and a lifetime of regret.